March 4th, 1987. Snow begins to fall in the early evening. By midnight, the air is thick with it. And at sunup, over a foot covers the ground. As the town of Dublin, New Hampshire begins to dig out, police receive a 911 call. The request, not for another snowplow, but an ambulance.
Yeah, I need an ambulance over to here at the old Jubilee Farm in Dublin, New Hampshire.
What's the problem?
My wife's dead in a bathtub.
Okay, what's your name?
Gary LaFond.
Gary LaFond is 25 years old. His wife, 23-year-old Michelle LaFond. The couple have been married 4 years and were expecting their first child.
Is she breathing or what?
No, she isn't.
Okay, Gary, we'll get him right over there.
Good, Eric.
Okay.
Within an hour, New Hampshire State Police Sergeant Clay Young enters the LaFond home.
We could not see any forced entry, which for us was at least a place to start. Inside the house itself, you could see that there had been a struggle.
An overturned chair, a cut wire. Signs of a struggle between Michelle and her attacker lead from the kitchen to the upstairs bedroom, where police find sheets stained with blood and a knotted nightshirt. In the upstairs bathroom, Sergeant Young finds Michelle LaFond's body, raped and strangled, lying face up in the bathtub. The detective begins his investigation at home.
Under circumstances like this, you just start right close to the home and spread out in terms of the people that you talk to, trying to develop information. Suspects were developed, but suspects were also eliminated.
The technology of 1987 is unable to lift a genetic fingerprint from the semen samples recovered from LaFond's body. A blood type, however, is developed, and Young tests every white male he can find, looking for a match.
We were never able to identify, at least from the suspects we knew at the time, who might have been responsible for this. We were able to eliminate a few, but we could never conclusively say it was anybody.
In time, the case goes cold. Michelle LaFond's rape kit is put into storage, and Sergeant Young must wait for a sexual sadist to strike again. 10 years and 1,400 miles distant from the LaFond murder, a group of law enforcement officers gathers for its annual conference in St. Petersburg, Florida. On the morning of December 8th, forensic investigator Lou Eliopoulos gives a slide presentation on cold case homicide investigations. He ends with the unsolved murder of Dina Kitchler.
We would average anywhere between 150 to 200 homicides a year. So you kind of know when a special homicide comes in.
Dina Kitchler was raped and strangled in her Jacksonville home. Her killer sexually assaulted the body and cut the corpse's hair in an upstairs bathtub. Eliopoulos tells the conference Florida's main suspect may have been the last person to see Kitchler alive, a loner named John Brewer. Detectives, however, failed to develop sufficient evidence to prosecute Brewer. As Eliopoulos outlines the parameters of the Kitchler case, he notices a detective in the front row of the audience.
And this detective is just turning pale. I mean, I can just see the blood going right out of his face.
The detective is Jim Tucker, a lieutenant with the Portsmouth Police Department and familiar with unsolved homicides in his home state of New Hampshire.
Lou looked at me and says, "There's a problem," and I guess I had my mouth open or something, and I just asked him, I said, "Please don't tell me this guy's from New Hampshire."
Eliopoulos tells Tucker not only did John Brewer spend time in New Hampshire, he was probably living there in 1987, the year Michelle LaFond was murdered. Tucker returns to Portsmouth to find out what other connections John Brewer might have in the Granite State. David Kelly was in college when Michelle LaFond was murdered. 11 years later, he heads the cold case squad that handles her case for the New Hampshire State Police. On January 27th, he gets a call from Lieutenant Tucker in Portsmouth. The lieutenant briefs Kelly on the Kitchler bathtub homicide and gives him the suspect's name, John Brewer.
I took the name, and it was very interesting what he had to tell me. It was a spark.
The first step for Tucker and Kelly is to find a connection between John Brewer and Michelle LaFond. Tucker opens up the case file from the Jacksonville homicide investigation. Inside it, he finds the link he needs.
Looking over the paperwork, they had a job application for John Brewer, And on that job application, it had Michelle LaFawn's husband listed as a reference.
To me, that was huge. We had now had John Brewer working in the area at the same company as the murder victim's husband.
Kelly sends the LaFawn murder file to Florida. Asimos and Florida medical examiner Lou Eliopoulos compare specifics with the Kitchler case. The method of murder is distinct, and cold case detectives believe growing progressively worse.
There were some things that were done to the body. From a sexual homicide standpoint, this person's playing with the body. And he's playing with the body based on his deviated sexual fantasies.
So he has graduated to doing more things, and he's carrying his fantasies or what have you farther with Dina.
When seen together, the LaFawn and Kitchler slayings reveal the mind of a sexual sadist, one who is growing increasingly violent, and if not stopped, likely to hunt and kill again. In the course of his investigation, Asimos also contacts an old girlfriend of Brewer to ask about their relationship and hopefully gather some useful information.
One interesting thing that she told us was that John was obsessed with her in the bathtub. She said she couldn't turn the water on in the bathtub to take a bath without him showing up at the door.
Brewer's girlfriend claims the suspect insisted on watching her take a bath and appeared to gain sexual pleasure from it. The story is another link in the chain of circumstance and coincidence that binds John Brewer to two murders in two separate states. Only one state, however, has a realistic chance of securing a conviction. Unlike Florida, the state of New Hampshire has a DNA profile of their suspect, obtained from semen recovered from Michelle LaFawn's rape kit. Up until now, however, they have had no suspect for comparison. Florida provides the suspect and his DNA profile.
Well, I told him, we have John Brewer's DQ alpha numbers. How about let me just fax those up to you? So I pulled the laboratory report, faxed them up to Dave Kelly. About 20 minutes later, he called me back and very excited said, we've got a match. The DQ alpha numbers match.
The DNA match is enough to arrest Brewer for the murder of Michelle LaFawn. On October 23rd, New Hampshire Detective John Kelly confronts John Brewer in front of his Jacksonville home. He is there to bring Brewer in for questioning about the murder of Michelle LaFawn. At first, Brewer claims he never knew Michelle LaFawn. Then, feeling the heat of a DNA match, the suspect adjusts his story. He tells Kelly he was having an affair with Michelle LaFawn. They had sex the morning she died, and he left the house before she was murdered. The bruises on the victim's body tell Kelly otherwise. Whatever else she did that morning, the acts of sex Michelle LaFawn endured were not consensual. Kelly begins the extradition process to New Hampshire. Meanwhile, Brewer is handed over to Florida detectives.
John, I know that there was a struggle. Okay, I know you hit her. I know you did certain things to her. And I know she wasn't a willing participant in all this.
After more than 2 hours of interrogation, Brewer confesses to adultery and nothing more.
Sure, I wanted more. There was a lot of really brutal things that were done that would really kind of detail what type of person he is and how the later post-mortem mutilation went to that level. I wanted that. He didn't want to do that.
At the end of the day, Florida cannot gather enough evidence to charge Brewer in the Kitchler case. Instead, they pack him off to the airport and a date with a DNA match in New Hampshire.
Mr. Brewer, did you kill Michelle LaFawn?
On April 17th, John Brewer walks into a New Hampshire courtroom, faced with the possibility of lethal injection. Brewer decides to cut his losses. He pleads guilty for raping and strangling two women he barely knew. In return, both states agree not to seek the death penalty, and Brewer is sentenced to life without parole. For cold case detectives, the conviction allows them to offer a bit of comfort for the families of two dead women, and perhaps more importantly, ensures that a sexual predator will spend the rest of his life behind bars.